Good morning. Today I am diving into all kinds of kitchen questions I get all the time on the blog. Grab a warm drink, get cozy, and join me for today's episode. Welcome back to the Making It a Home podcast. I'm your host Molly from the blog and YouTube channel Plum Branch Home. Let's dive into today's episode. So I wrote down about 13-ish questions that I get all the time over on the blog and that I thought you guys would like to hear here on the podcast. So I wrote them down and I'm just going to talk through each one and answer them in case you're wondering, or maybe it's something you never even thought to ask. So the very first one is, what is your favorite slow cooker brand? So I used to have just a plain, simple, off brand from Amazon that my mom got me and my husband when we first got married in college. And I loved that crock pot. I used it for 4 years and I just recently got a new one. This new brand is called Green Life and I got it on Amazon. It's actually really awesome. So the front panel has a, it has your normal low, medium, and high heat. And then also it has a timer. So you can set it for I think it's up to 14 hours. It's a long time. And you set it on there and then you pick your mode. So low, medium, or high heat. And then once it cooks for that time, so say you set a roast on 8 hours and you're not home, your crock pot then goes into a default keep warm mode for 4 hours. So you can either choose to keep it warm, or as soon as your timer goes off, it goes right to the keep warm and you don't have to worry about it. So after church on Saturdays, my husband and I go to mass and we don't get back until a little bit later than we normally eat supper. So I usually put something in the crock pot, and with this one, I can put it in there and then I know if it takes a little longer to get home, our food is keeping warm and it's not overcooking. So love that brand, highly recommend it. I've had it for about a month now and I will never go back to any other kind. It's also a non-toxic slow cooker, so you don't have to worry about any PFAs or any garbage getting into your food like Teflon. It's made with a non-toxic ceramic and I love it. So you don't have to worry about things sticking either because it's a non-toxic, naturally non-stick, a coating in there. I love it so much. So yeah, definitely recommend that brand, and the non-toxic part, it just makes it even better. The next question I get is, do you use salted or unsalted butter in your recipes? So I always use salted butter unless I specify it on the recipe. I've been trying to put salted on there so you guys can know exactly what kind I use, but I really like to use salted butter. A lot of people will use unsalted because they feel like they can control the salt levels a little bit better. But I feel like your salted butter doesn't add too much salt to any recipe and it's really easy to work around. It adds a much richer flavor to the food. And then also with your baked goods, a lot of people don't put salt in their baked goods and that is what brings a lot of flavor. The salt, even just a little bit, is going to bring tons of flavor to your baked treats. So when you use that salted butter in a scone or a muffin, it's going to add so much more taste and flavor to it. So I always recommend using salted butter. If you prefer unsalted, you definitely can. If you're worried about salt and sodium levels, it's totally fine, but it will taste just a little bit different, totally up to you. Next question is, does unbleached parchment paper really matter? So this is just a personal preference. If you don't really care about doing a non-toxic kitchen, you probably don't worry about unbleached parchment paper. For me, I really care about making sure the food I cook is wholesome and the items I use to cook it are also non-toxic, so I can really reduce the garbage we put into our bodies. So parchment paper can have a lot of chemicals on it from the bleaching process, so I always get unbleached parchment paper. It costs about the same amount at Walmart, Kroger, wherever you get your stuff. I really like to get the Walmart Great Value brand of unbleached parchment paper. It's $2 and some cents and you get a gigantic roll. So I just get that. I don't have to worry about any of the junk and chemicals getting in our food. And it works well. I actually use that instead of tin foil and wax paper. This unbleached parchment paper is my go-to. So yeah, I definitely recommend it to everybody. It doesn't cost very much extra and it can really protect you from those unnecessary chemicals. Next is, what's your most used kitchen tool? That is a really good question. I just wrote these down and really didn't think about them. So let's think about this. My most used kitchen tool. I would say I have two, I guess. I have, I'm going to say my cheese grater. I use it all the time. I use it for cheese, for slicing cheese, for grating cheese, all kinds, for grating Parmesan and getting it really fluffy, like a dusting. I even you could even use that for like jalapenos. I do that whenever I want little tiny pieces. I will grate my jalapeno. What else do I use it for? I've also used it to zest a lemon in a pinch. So I used to just do that, a lemon or a lime or an orange. So my cheese grater. And I also buy blocks of cheese at the grocery store instead of shredded. I try to really eliminate all of the anti-caking powders and stuff that they put on shredded cheese. So I just buy big blocks of cheese at the store and I shred them my own. And we use a lot of cheese in this house. So yeah, my cheese grater. The second one that is probably the exact same amount of use is my chef's knife. So I used to only use paring knives, and that's what I grew up using, and I didn't really think a chef's knife was worth it. It's huge. I didn't know how to use it. And then I started learning more about cooking, and I wanted to improve my skills. And so I bought a chef's knife. It's like $10 on Amazon. It wasn't crazy expensive or anything. And I learned how to use it properly, and now I use it for everything. That thing is used every single day, whether I'm cutting up an onion, a potato, cheese, if I'm cutting up meat, like I use it for everything. It's my multi-purpose tool. So yes, both my cheese grater and my chef's knife are the number one items I use in our kitchen. Next is, do you really have to use unbleached flour for sourdough? So for baking sourdough recipes, no. For feeding a sourdough starter, yes. So when you feed a sourdough starter, you can use bleached or regular all-purpose flour, but it's going to weaken your starter. So if you've been having a lot of issues with your starter rising and growing after you feed it, or your breads and baked goods are dense, it's probably from the bleached flour. So I always recommend using unbleached. It helps your starter not have any of those bleaching chemicals in there. It really helps keep it strong and active. And then if you're using that for your starter, you're probably just buying it and using it for your baked treats, which is better for your health anyway. Unbleached is much better for you. But if you really wanted to use regular flour in your sourdough recipes, you could. But yeah, I highly recommend using unbleached flour. It's going to make your stuff so much better. Okay, the next question is there a non-toxic griddle or grill out there? Yes, I actually just found this for Christmas as well. I spent a lot of my Christmas money on kitchen tools. I, in college, had a George Foreman grill, and I quickly, after about 2 to 3 years of use, I realized that those panels are full of chemicals. The non-stick, like Teflon almost coating, I don't know exactly what's on them, I can't remember, but there's a non-stick coating on those, and they are so toxic for you if they start peeling off. So I used that until they started peeling, and I tossed it. It was actually, that George Foreman was used to the bone. I use it so much. So this year I actually decided to go ahead and get a non-toxic version. It's called Green Pan Grill, and it turns into a griddle as well. You can get it on Amazon. So what it is it's a indoor grill, and it's basically like a George Foreman, but instead of just being able to like grill with the two plates down, you can open it up and it turns into a griddle, and you can flip the plates over, and it has a smooth side, not just the grill side. So yeah, it's 2-in-1. It's really worth it. It's also non-toxic, so it's coated with a non-toxic like ceramic type coating, so you're not going to have anything flaking off into your food. There's no chemicals in it. It's completely non-toxic. So I highly recommend getting the Green Pan Grill / Griddle. You will love it. It cooks meat really awesome. You can do pancakes. I've even cooked tortillas on there. You can really cook anything. You can also use it as a panini press. We do that all the time, whether it's chicken burgers and like sourdough bread with cheese or ham and cheese. We do the pressed paninis all the time now. So yeah, the Green Pan Grill on Amazon is 100% recommended. I will definitely link these items I'm talking about that I use all the time down in the show notes of this podcast episode. That way you guys can shop and look at everything. What kind of chef's knife do you use and how to keep it sharp? So I just have let me look actually what I have. So I just have the Farberware basic chef's knife. This was only about $10 to $15, and it comes with this edge keeper. That's what it's called. It's like a it's like a cover that you put on your knife blade, and when you pull it out, it has a little sharpener in there. So that's how I keep this knife sharp. It's not perfect. It's not like the best knife you could possibly get, but it's affordable, and you don't have to worry about sharpening it because it does it itself every time you take it out of the cover. So yeah, the Farberware chef's knife is 100% what I recommend, especially for beginners that are just starting out cooking. This knife is really good to learn on. It's comfortable in your hands. So like when you're holding a chef's knife, you're gonna like wrap your fingers around it, and then your index finger and your thumb are gonna go right on the top of the blade, and you're gonna move your fingers all the way up so your middle finger is hitting the back of that blade. So you're not gonna cut yourself, and those other fingers wrap around the handle, and if that makes sense, and then you're gonna do like just going to do up and down motions with that knife. And that's the easiest way to use a chef's knife, and it keeps all of your fingers protected and safe. So that is a chef's knife I absolutely love. I'll probably upgrade to something a little bit better once this kind of dulls out. It will eventually, it's starting to already, but I've had it for a year, and I definitely recommend. The next question we have is best way to store herbs to keep them fresh. So I love storing them in mason jars or any kind of glass jar. You put the stems of the herbs down in the glass jar, and then you'll fill it up about 3/4 of the way with water, and then put it in your refrigerator. So you'll have little jars of herbs and water sitting in there, and then it's basically like, I always think of like a tree. So those stems are basically your roots down in the water, and then your herbs are on top. So whenever you're cooking and you want to use some of your herbs, just pop into the fridge, pick off a few of the tops, and then use those. You don't have to worry about chopping them or anything. Just continue to leave those stems in there. And then about every like 2 to 3 days, dump the water out and put fresh in there. I recommend using filtered water to do this. If you live in the city, you do not want the city water in there with all the chemicals if possible. So yeah, I have like our Life Straw water filter pitcher, and then I just fill it up like I would our drinking water or our drinking glasses, and that's how I keep them fresh. I have kept herbs fresh in those jars in water in the fridge for about a month, and they last the entire time. So that's how I do it. We only grocery shop once a month, so that's how I really had to learn how to keep herbs fresh for a long time. So yes, that works really well. Next question, let's see, where are we at? Okay. How can I keep my kitchen always clean and tidy? So this is such a good question. As you can see, our kitchen is very clean and tidy, and it's for a few reasons. So every time we cook a meal in this kitchen, every time I make something in this kitchen, even if it's just a tea, I will clean up. So all of the dishes go in the sink as soon as we're done with them. Nothing sits on the counter. All of the ingredients get put away as soon as they're used. And then after mealtime, we clear the table as soon as we're done, and we wash the dishes. So we have a dishwasher, and then I also hand wash things. So I wash the dishes after every meal, except for breakfast. So our breakfast dishes get done at lunch, but I make our lunch, I do our dishes, I make our supper, I do our dishes, and then the kitchen closes down. And at the end of the day, I wipe down all of the countertops. I usually wipe down just really quick after every meal, including breakfast. So when I'm done with breakfast and we put our dishes in the sink, I just take a wet cloth and I wipe down all the counters. And then I do the same after lunch. And then after supper, after I have all the dishes done for the day, then I will take my all-purpose DIY cleaner. I'll leave the recipe down in the description below because it works really well and it's non-toxic. I use that. I spray down all of the countertops in the kitchen and the fridge handles because for some reason I get a ton of like flour and butter on there. I get ingredients on there because my hands are messy. So I wipe down the fridge handles, I wipe down the counters, and then I usually wipe down around the sink. And if the sink is starting to get a little yucky, I will I'll put some soap in there and scrub it down. It takes 5 minutes to wipe down everything and scrub out the sink, and it's so worth it because then your kitchen is tidy and it's done for the night. So that's what I recommend doing. Just make sure you always are cleaning up after each meal. Wiping down the counters is huge so you don't have a whole bunch of like crumbs and crud on your countertops. And then for the floors, I usually just sweep our kitchen once or twice a week. You could get like a little handheld vacuum. We have one. And then if you make a mess or you see crumbs after you eat, you can just quickly sweep them up in that general area, and it keeps your kitchen really nice and tidy. I cannot go about my day if I have dishes everywhere and if I have the counters a mess. I have to have it clean. And yeah, it works really, really well, especially when you make a ton of food from scratch. It's really important to keep your kitchen clean. Also, a good thing that I always like to do, and I apply it to everywhere in my house, is everything has a place. So every ingredient has a place, every kitchen tool has a place, everything has a place, and then it will keep everything so tidy. Next up is, how can I tell if meat is cooked without overcooking it? So I grew up learning how to cook meat I knew it was done by the look and feel of it, and then sometimes I would just cut in a little bit. My mom taught me basically how to tell if chicken or beef is done by just looking at it. So that's how I learned, just by sight and feel. But recently I did buy a meat thermometer just for chicken. So I really wanted to start cooking chicken a little bit better and make it a little bit more juicy in the pan or on our little griddle. So I got a meat thermometer, and like chicken's done at 165 degrees Fahrenheit. So if you just pop it in there and you look up the different temperatures for your meat, that's the easiest way to do it. So if you're just getting started or you're struggling, I recommend just getting a basic kitchen thermometer. They're like $8 on Amazon. I'm sure you can get one at Walmart as well. They're super affordable, and then you can just stick it in there when you're done. You'll usually stick it in the thickest part of the meat, and then just read the gauge and you'll know exactly if it's done or not based on the temperature. So that's what I always like to tell people. And then as you start cooking your meat and learning like what it looks like and what it feels like at that temperature, you'll be able to not use that thermometer as much, and you'll get really good at knowing when your meat is done. I don't know if I'll ever feel like that with chicken, just because I am so weird with chicken. I would rather overcook it than undercook it. Obviously, like, you don't want to get sick. But yeah, I definitely use that thermometer now for chicken breasts. So I hope that helps you. I'll put the one I have down below in the description. It's a digital one, so you just click it on and it tells you the temperature, and you don't have to worry about reading a gauge. The next question is, what's the best way to store leftovers? This question is such a good one. So leftovers can be gross. If you have them in like plastic containers, that is gonna not be appealing. So what I do, and my husband and I were not leftover people when we met. We did not want to eat leftovers, and honestly, I didn't really make very much food because I did not want to have leftovers. Now I try to cook just for what we need, but we do have leftovers once in a while. So what I do is I always store everything in glass containers. So I just have basic Pyrex glass storage containers, and we put all of our leftovers in those. And then if it's any kind of meat, it goes straight in the freezer once it's cooled down. If I put meat in the refrigerator, I hate the way it tastes, even if it's just overnight. So I've found if you put those glass containers in the freezer, and then it preserves the taste of the meat, and it is so good. It tastes just like if you had it the day before. When you heat it up from the freezer, it tastes just like the time when you made it, so there's no weird taste. Also, your leftovers can stay much fresher for a lot longer if it's in the freezer. So my storage containers are oven safe. So what I like to do is I will grab them out of the freezer when we're ready. I'll take the lids off and I put them into the cold oven. Never put glass containers in a hot oven. They will bust and burst, and never put them in a toaster oven. That is going to cause a lot of problems. And it's very dangerous. So you're gonna put it in a cold oven and make sure they're oven safe, no lid, and then you're gonna preheat the oven when it's already in there, and then it slowly brings the food and the glass to a temperature that's warm. So say you want to reheat your taco meat to 400 degrees, take your glass container, take the lid off, put it in the cold oven, hit preheat to 400, and it's gonna slowly bring the glass and your food to 400 degrees. That's the safest way. It makes your food taste so good. I never use our microwave. So we are in a rental and this thing came with it. So I do not use that. I use the oven all the time. If you don't want to put it in the oven, you could also do, like say it's something that you've put in the refrigerator, like a sauce. You can warm it on the stovetop in a small little saucepan, and that's the best way to warm those. But yeah, I just store everything in glass and I reheat it on the stove or in the oven, and everything tastes so much better. Okay, the second to last question is, what's your top favorite cooking tools you can't live without? So definitely the chef's knife, the box cheese grater, my glass mixing bowls. So I have the 3 set of Pyrex glass mixing bowls with the lids on top. I use those all the time. My bench scraper, oh my gosh, if you don't have a bench scraper, you have to get one. You can use it to chop dough up. You can use it to clean your countertops. It is so, so good. So yeah, definitely the bench scraper. I'm trying to think of what else. I have this like little, I don't even know it's like a little scraper, and I use it to clean out like anything stuck onto pans whenever whenever I'm washing dishes. That's a huge one. What else is there? I'm trying to think. Definitely my slow cooker, and definitely that griddle I was telling you about. And then also, I guess a last one, I could probably list a ton, but the last one that I use all the time is my mini saucepan. So it's really, really small, and I use it to melt butter, to heat up tea that's gone cold, to make hot chocolate. So I use that all the time. The last question is, does reverse osmosis water affect sourdough? I'm having issues. First, I want to say with the sourdough starter, you're going to always want to use a filtered water of some sort. So city water, like we have, do not use that. The chemicals will kill your starter. A well water, it has a lot of minerals in there, and that can make your starter act weird. And then reverse osmosis, there's different kinds. If yours is just like a filter that does not use salt of any kind, you're great, and that's perfect. So like a lot of people like to use the filtered water out of the refrigerator. That's great. If you have a reverse osmosis system that filters your water with salt, so you put bags of salt into something and it filters your water. So that is going to, I don't know exactly how to explain it because I don't really understand reverse osmosis a ton. All I know is a lot of people have difficulties and issues when they use reverse osmosis water because of that salt. Somehow it's in there a little bit and it causes a weird thing to happen with your starter. So if you're not having issues and you have reverse osmosis, that is amazing. If you are having issues, I recommend using bottled water or get some kind of filtered water pitcher. I have the Life Straw one and I love it. You can fill that up and use that for your starter and your sourdough breads. So that's what I would recommend doing if you are having issues. But I hope these questions are really fun to listen to and you learn some things. I love going through questions and just answering them here on the podcast. I think I'm going to do this a lot more. I have a lot of fun doing it and I think it's helpful. So thank you so much for listening. Until next time, bring life to your home through the kitchen.